I was laying in the bed, taking me an old man nap, and I was having this dream that it was Thanksgiving because I was smelling Thanksgiving food. So I jumped up because I thought I smelled some chicken gravy, cornbread dressing. I ran in the kitchen, and when I got there, I didn't see nobody, and I ain't see no chicken gravy, cornbread dressing. I ain't see no greens, and I ain't see no macaroni and cheese, and I ain't see no fried chicken. And I was like, for real? I can't have no Thanksgiving food without Thanksgiving? Well, I'm going to be thankful and have my own little Thanksgiving food. So I grabbed me a bowl, and I grabbed the egg, and I grabbed some milk and some oil, and I put that in the bowl with a little cornmeal, and I grabbed my little whisk, and I stirred it up till it was good and thick. And I went and grabbed me a cast iron skillet, and I put some oil in it, and I poured my little cornbread mixture into that skillet, and I shook it around, and then I put it into the little oven, and I let that bake until it was good and done and brown, and I pulled it on out, and I set that to the side, and I went and grabbed some aluminum foil, and I grabbed me a couple of chicken breasts, and I put that on that little aluminum foil, and I seasoned it down with a little Pollo Wang seasoning, a little salt, and I wrapped it up in that aluminum foil, and I stuck that into the oven, let that set and get tender. And I went on ahead and grabbed me some celery, and I grabbed a bell pepper, and I grabbed the onion, and I grabbed my little knife, and I chopped those up into little pieces. But I like mine's a little chunky, so I made me a little chunky size pieces. And I went on ahead and grabbed me a pot, and I put some butter in my little pot, and I went and grabbed some flour, and I put my little flour in that butter to make me a little butter roux. And I grabbed my little onions and bell peppers and my celery and my little chunky pieces, and I put that into that little butter roux, and I stirred it up till it was good and coated. And I went and grabbed me some chicken broth, and I poured the chicken broth in there, and I stirred that up till it was good and incorporated. And I just kept on stirring till it was good and cooking that flour and that butter roux out. And I grabbed me some seasoning. I grabbed a little sage, a little salt, a little black pepper, and I put that in there, and I seasoned it down, and I went on ahead and stirred it up a little bit more. And I said, you know what? I think that chicken about done. Let me check on that chicken. So I went and grabbed the chicken out the oven, and I opened up that aluminum foil, and oh yeah, it was ready there. So I went on ahead and grabbed me a little fork, and I pulled that chicken out that aluminum foil, and I saw all that chicken drippings left over. I said, man, I'm going to keep that. So I took those chicken drippings and I poured that into my gravy. And I'm like, man, that's going to be good right there. So I went on and grabbed my little spoon, and I stirred that up in there, and I let that sit and continue to cook. And I grabbed me a little fork, got me a couple of forks, and I sat there and I shredded my little chicken apart because I like my chicken shredded but chunky at the same time. And I went on here and took those chicken chunky shredded pieces, and I put that in my little gravy to make me a little chicken gravy. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to put some garlic in here. So I went on and grabbed some garlic, and I put that in there, and I stirred it up and let that continue to cook. And I went on ahead and grabbed my aluminum tray, and I said, let me start on this dressing. So I went on ahead and put my cornbread into the aluminum tray, and I grabbed me a little whisk, and I separated that cornbread, and I got my pot of chicken gravy, and I started scooping that chicken gravy into that cornbread dressing. I said, man, I'm going to put some more in there because I like mine full of chicken and peppers and onions and celery. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put a little sage in here, put some more sage in there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do what my mama told me. I'm going to put some mustard in it. My mama told me about this mustard. So I put some mustard in it, and I went on ahead and got me an egg, and I cracked me a little egg in there, and I seasoned it down with a little more salt, and I stirred it up, and I went on and grabbed me some more chicken broth, and I poured that in to make sure it's good and loose and wiggly, because I was laying in the bed taking my little old man nap, and I was having this dream that it was Thanksgiving. So I was smelling Thanksgiving food. So I jumped up and ran in the kitchen. And when I got there, I was standing there looking crazy because I ain't see nobody, and I ain't see no chicken gravy, cornbread dressing. I ain't see no greens. I ain't see no macaroni and cheese. And I ain't see no fried chicken. And I was like, for real? I can't have no Thanksgiving food without Thanksgiving? Well, I'm going to be thankful and have my own little Thanksgiving food. So I took my little chicken dressing, I put that in the oven, and I let that sit and get done. And I went on ahead and pulled it on out, and I saw that it was good and loose and tight at the same time, like I like it. And I went on ahead and grabbed me a spoon, and I grabbed me a plate, and I put my little cornbread dressing on that plate. And I went and got me another scoop of that chicken gravy, and I pulled that over top of that cornbread dressing. I sat there and I ate it because it was delicious. And I remember when I was laying in the bed, I was taking my little old man nap, and I was like, man, I smell Thanksgiving food. So I jumped up and I ran in the kitchen, and I was standing there looking crazy because I ain't see nobody, and I ain't see no chicken cornbread dressing, and I ain't see no greens, and I ain't see no macaroni and cheese, and I ain't see no fried chicken. And I was like, for real? I can't have Thanksgiving food without Thanksgiving? Well, I'm going to be thankful and have my own Thanksgiving food. Mama, I was sitting around the house just minding my business, and I got a call from a friend of mine that I ain't heard from in a while, and said they were just calling to check in on me to see how I'm doing. I said, oh man, I sure appreciate that. You know, I don't really get a lot of people to just call me and check and see how I'm doing. What's going on? They said, oh, nothing, just checking in. What you up to? I said, nothing much, just sitting around here trying to decide what I was going to eat for dinner. Might put some food on the stove. They said, oh, okay, you gonna cook? I said, yeah, I'm thinking about putting some food on the stove. They said, oh, okay, well, you don't mind if I come through? I said, no, what's going on? They said, no, I'm just coming by to say hey. I said, oh, okay, well, come on through. I sure wouldn't mind seeing you. So they came on through, and when they got there, they saw that I had some food on the stove. They said, well, what you cooking? I said, well, I decided I was going to do me some turnip greens, a little crispy baked chicken, a little honey butter cornbread with some smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. They said smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. I ain't heard of that before. What's that? That sounds like something new. I said, yeah, I think I was going to do something a little different. They said, oh, okay, well, how you make it? I said, well, you just get you a little pot of water, you put that on the stove, and you let that boil, and you get you a box of that elbow noodles, and you pour the elbow noodles in, and you let that boil, and you season it down with a little salt, and you let that get good and tender, but not too done, just a little tender. And you go ahead and drain the water off, and you put that in a little bowl, and you set it to the side, and you get you about a pound of that smoked Gouda cheese, and you cut that into little cubes and just a little evenly distributed, and you go ahead and start on your cheese sauce. Get you another little pot, and you put you about 4 tablespoons of butter in there, and then you get you a block of that cream cheese, and you put that in there, and you stir that up until it start melting on a little low medium heat, and then you get your smoked Gouda cheese, and you put that in there, and you stir that up till it start melting with that butter and cream cheese, and then you season it down with a little garlic salt, and then you get you a little smoked paprika, and you put that in there, and you stir it up, and you're going to get you some heavy whipping cream, and you pour that in, and you keep on stirring until it turns good and creamy. Because, I was just sitting at the house just minding my business, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine I ain't heard from in a while, and they called to check in on me to see how I'm doing. I said, oh, man, that sure is nice. I don't have a lot of people to call and check in on me to see how I'm doing. I said, what's going on? They said, nothing much, just checking in on you. What you up to? I said, well, I'm trying to decide what I was going to fix for dinner. They said, you about to cook? I said, yeah, I might put something on the stove. They said, oh, okay, you don't mind if I come through, do you? I said, no, what's going on? They said, no, I'm just coming by to just say hey. I said, oh, okay, well, come on through. I sure wouldn't mind seeing you. So they came on through, and when they got there, they saw that I had some food on the stove. They said, well, what you cooking? I said, well, I decided I was going to do a little turnip greens, a little crispy baked chicken, a little honey butter cornbread. And right now I'm working on some smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. They say smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. I ain't heard of that. That sounds like something new. I said, yeah, I decided I was going to do something a little different. They say, oh, okay, well, how you make it? I said, well, you get your little noodles and you boil that in some water with a little salt, and you make your little cream sauce with your smoked Gouda cheese, and you put that in a little bowl, and you mix it together till it's good and creamy, and you put down a little casserole dish and you put a little shredded cheese across the top and you put that in the oven and let it set. And you go ahead and grab your plate and get ready for dinner. Serve some of that smoked Gouda cheese. They say, oh, okay, well, you sure don't mind if I have a plate with you? I said, no. I thought you was coming by to say, hey. I'm just joking, man. Go ahead and have a plate. Come on and have some dinner. Mama, while I was hanging at the house, minding my business, one of my friend of mine decided they wanted to stop by and say hey. So when they got there, they saw that I had some food on the stove. So they was like, hey, what you cooking? I said, well, I'm working on a little turnip greens and working on a little crispy baked chicken. And I'm working on a little honey butter cornbread to go with my smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. They said, oh, man, that sounds good. You don't mind if I stick around and have a plate with you, do you? I said, no, I don't mind, man. What's going on? They said, man, I ain't doing too much, man. Just stopping by to say hey. And, I be seeing you all over my little social media page cooking, man. Food be looking good. I said, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. He said, yeah, man, I be reading your little comments, man. I be seeing people, they like it, man. And I see some other people, they don't really care for it, man. I said, yeah, man. I said, people gonna be people, man. You're gonna always have some people that's gonna, they're gonna look for the good throughout all the bad. And you're gonna have some people that's gonna look for the bad throughout the good. But either way, man, that ain't got nothing to do with me. That between them and they computer, I said, yeah, because, my mama always told me, when you get hungry, you better figure it out and go fix you something to eat. So I had to figure it out, and I went and fixed me some crispy baked chicken, man. I got me a couple of wings, and I put that in some water, and I pulled a little hair from under the arm, and I went on ahead and seasoned it down with a little of that Pollo Wang seasoning, and I went and got me a little baking sheet with a little wire rack, and I lined my little chicken up on that rack, and I put that in the oven. I let that sit and get crispy, and I pulled it out for after about 30 minutes, and I flipped them over so they can get good and crispy on both sides, and I went on ahead and put that back in the oven. And while I was cooking, I went on and started on my turnip greens. I got me a pot of water, and I put me some smoked turkey in it, and I let that sit and get tender, and I seasoned it down with a little Pollo Wang seasoning, and I went and got me some cleaned and cut up turnip greens, and I put that in there, and I seasoned it down with a little onion powder, a little garlic powder, and I let that sit and get tender, and I went on ahead and started cutting up my little turnip roots. My mama sure loved her some turnip greens, so I had to make me some too. So I got me a couple of turnip roots, and I peeled the skin off of it, and I cut that into little quarters, and I put that in there with the little turnip greens, and I stirred it up till it got good and tender, and I went on ahead and put my little lid on it and let that sit for a while. And I said, well, let me go ahead and start on some cornbread. So I put some cornbread in the oven, and I went on ahead and pulled that out, and I put some butter across the top, and I got me some honey, and I put me a little honey across the top, and I went on ahead and got me a knife, and I went on and cut me some triangles out of my little cornbread and pulled out me a little piece and put that on the side, and I went on ahead and set up the little spread because it's time to eat because, I had to go ahead and put together a little turnip greens, a little crispy baked chicken, a little smoked Gouda, macaroni and cheese, and I put together a little honey butter cornbread. And we went on and got a plate, and we sat down and we enjoyed our meal because, I was just sitting around at the house just minding my business, and a friend of mine decided he wanted to stop by and say hey. And when he got there, he saw I had some food on the stove. He said, man, what you cooking? I said, well, I'm just working on a little turnip greens, a little crispy baked chicken, a little honey butter cornbread to go with my smoked Gouda macaroni and cheese. He said, man, that sounds good, man. You don't mind if I stick around and have a plate with you? I said, no. What's going on? He said, yeah, man, I just stopped by to say hey, man. And I be seeing you all over my little social media, man. I like what you got going on. I be reading your little comments, and I see some people like what you're doing and some people don't care for it. I said, yeah, man, you're going to always have some people that's going to look for the good, and you're going to have some people that's always going to look for the bad.